My mother told me I wasn't invited to Christmas 4 days before I was supposed to arrive. She didn't say there wasn't enough room. She didn't say anyone was sick. She didn't say plans had changed. She said, "We're keeping Christmas parents only this year." I stared at the message for almost a full minute. My older brother Michael was invited. His wife was invited. Their 2 children were invited. My younger sister Emily was invited. Her husband was invited. Their daughter was invited. My parents were obviously going to be there. The only adult in our immediate family who wasn't a parent was me. So when Mom said parents only, what she really meant was everyone except Becca. I was 37 years old. I had spent almost every Christmas of my adult life at my parents' house. I bought gifts. I contributed to groceries. I ordered the dessert. I helped Mom decorate. I arrived early. I stayed late. I wrapped last-minute presents that somehow became my problem because everyone else was busy with children. And that year, 4 days before Christmas, I was told I wouldn't be sitting at the table. Then my mother sent another message. "You already bought the kids' presents, right?" That was the moment I stopped feeling confused. I felt embarrassed instead, not because I wasn't invited, because I suddenly understood how they saw me. I was family enough to send gifts, family enough to help pay, family enough to work behind the scenes, just not family enough to be there. I didn't argue. I didn't call Michael. I didn't call Emily. I didn't ask my mother to reconsider. I replied with one word, "Okay." Then I canceled the dessert I had ordered. I canceled the grocery delivery I had arranged for Christmas Eve. I returned 2 things I had purchased specifically for the family meal. I kept the children's gifts. They had nothing to do with this. And then I opened my laptop and searched. Restaurants open, Christmas Day. There was one hotel downtown offering a fixed Christmas dinner. Reservation size. I clicked. 1. I stared at that number longer than I want to admit. 1 guest, 1 chair, 1 place setting. For a few seconds, it felt humiliating. Like I was confirming what my family had just told me, that everybody else had a family, and I had a seat. Then I booked it anyway. I thought I was reserving Christmas dinner. I didn't know I was making the first reservation of the rest of my life. My name is Rebecca Lawson, and everyone calls me Becca. Michael is 3 years older than me. Emily is 5 years younger. Growing up, we were close in the ordinary sibling way. We fought. We borrowed clothes. Michael complained that Emily and I took too long in the bathroom. Emily followed me everywhere until she was about 12 and decided I was embarrassing. There was nothing unusual about us. Christmas was always the biggest family day of the year. My father loved traditions. The same music every Christmas Eve. The same ridiculous Santa ornament he had owned since before any of us were born. My mother cooked too much food every year and still worried there wouldn't be enough. Michael and I used to wake Emily up before sunrise when we were children because she was the youngest and easiest to convince. My parents were not cold people. That is important. I did not grow up believing I was unloved. If anything, that is why what happened later took me so long to understand. Exclusion does not always begin with someone saying, "You don't belong here." Sometimes it begins with smaller sentences. "You're more flexible." "You don't have a family schedule." "It's easier for you." "You can come another weekend." "You understand." For years, I did understand. Michael married his wife, Sarah, when I was 29. Their first child, Owen, was born 2 years later. Their daughter, Lily, came 3 years after that. Emily married David at 30. Their daughter, Sophie, was born about 18 months later. I never married. I had relationships, some serious, some not. There was one man I thought I might marry. We were together for 4 years. We wanted different things eventually. It ended painfully, but not cruelly. I never had children. That wasn't a tragedy I needed anyone to solve. I like children. I love my nieces and nephew. I simply had a different life. I worked in commercial property management. By my mid-30s, I had a good career, my own apartment, savings, friends, and enough freedom that I could occasionally travel without coordinating around school calendars or custody arrangements. From the outside, I was doing well. And in my family, doing well created a strange kind of invisibility. Michael had a wife and 2 children. His time mattered because 4 people depended on it. Emily had a husband and a daughter. Her time mattered because parenting was exhausting. My time looked empty to them, not literally, but functionally. If Christmas dinner needed to move from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. because Sophie napped late, I adjusted. If Michael needed the guest bedroom because putting 2 children to sleep on a sofa was difficult, I slept on the pullout. If family vacation dates changed because Owen had soccer camp, I either changed my plans or didn't go. Nobody forced me. That mattered too. I kept telling myself I was choosing to be flexible, and technically I was. But eventually, repeated flexibility becomes a role. And once people get used to your role, they stop seeing the adjustments you make. They just see you as the person who adjusts. One Christmas, I had booked a flight home for December 23rd. 2 weeks before, Michael said they wanted to arrive that same evening, but didn't want both kids overtired. Mom asked if I could change my flight so they could have the guest room that first night without the house feeling too crowded. I paid a change fee and arrived Christmas Eve morning. Nobody said thank you. Not because they were malicious, because in their minds, it was obvious. Becca can adjust. Another year, I had tickets to a concert with a friend on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Mom wanted to decorate that weekend because Michael's family was coming over. She asked if I could move my plans. I said I couldn't. Her response was, "Well, I just thought you'd want to help with the family stuff." The family stuff. I remember looking at that phrase later. My concert was something I wanted. Their plans were family. The categories were already being built. I just did not see them yet. When Owen was born, I became Aunt Becca. I loved it. I bought too many baby clothes. I volunteered to babysit. I learned how to install a car seat and still probably did it wrong twice. When Lily was born, I took a week off work around Sarah's due date because Michael was overwhelmed and my mother had the flu. When Sophie was born, I stayed at Emily's for 3 nights and slept on her sofa so David could go back to work while Emily recovered. I do not regret any of that. Those memories are real. My love for those children is real. But something else happened at the same time. My siblings became families, and I became Becca. I noticed it first in language. Michael would say, "We're trying to find a vacation that works for all the families." And he meant his family, Emily's family, Mom and Dad. I was included in the plan, but linguistically, I was extra. One Thanksgiving, Sarah said, "It's so nice having the whole family here." Then she looked at me and added, "And Becca." She corrected herself immediately. She was embarrassed. I laughed. I made a joke, but I remembered it. Nobody was trying to erase me. They had just started using the word family differently. After that, the little things became easier to notice. Hotel rooms on family trips were distributed based on children. I got the smallest room. Dinner reservations were chosen based on kids' menus. Family photos became combinations. Grandparents with grandchildren, parents with children, couples with kids. Then someone would say, "Becca, jump in." Like I was being added to a composition that already made sense without me. My career milestones were celebrated. Sort of. When I was promoted to regional director, everyone sent congratulations in the group chat. Michael used 3 clapping emojis. Emily said, "Knew you'd do it." Mom called and said she was proud. 2 weeks later, Owen had a school performance. My parents drove 4 hours to attend. Emily rearranged her work schedule. Everyone posted photos. I did not resent Owen. He was 9. He deserved people cheering for him. But I remember thinking how strange it was that adulthood can make your accomplishments feel optional if they are not connected to marriage or children. There was no family category for, "Becca worked for 15 years and built something she is proud of. That was nice." But it was mine. A child's achievement belonged to everyone. I still didn't think of any of this as rejection. I thought, this is what families do. Children change priorities. Parents have less flexibility. I have more. So I should use it. And because I believed that, I volunteered more, especially at Christmas. By my mid-30s, Christmas had become almost a job I performed with my mother. She planned, I executed. She would send me a list around Thanksgiving: turkey, ham, potatoes, vegetables, dessert, wine, juice boxes, gift bags, stocking fillers. I would order things, pick things up, wrap things, drive across town. I had a corporate discount through one of our vendor partners and sometimes used it to order gift baskets for relatives. One year, I paid for the family photographer. Another year, I bought matching pajamas for all the children. My parents always reimbursed some of the major costs. This wasn't about money exactly. It was labor, availability, attention. I liked being useful. That was probably part of the problem. Useful people rarely notice they are being valued for usefulness until they stop being useful. The Christmas everything changed began normally. In early December, Mom created a group chat called Christmas 2025. She sent a tree emoji. Then the schedule: Christmas Eve snacks at 6, Christmas morning breakfast at 9, dinner at 3. Michael replied that Lily had been struggling with late evenings. Emily said Sophie might need a nap after lunch. Mom adjusted dinner to 4. I replied, "Works for me." Of course it did. Then Mom asked if I could order the chocolate trifle everyone liked from a bakery near my office. I said yes. She asked if I could arrange a grocery delivery because she hated doing the last big shop. I said yes. Michael asked if I could pick up an extra controller for Owen's game system because the store near him was sold out. I found one. Emily asked me to help choose a gift for Sophie because apparently I was better at finding cool things. I spent 40 minutes searching. Everything felt normal. Then, about 10 days before Christmas, the group chat got quieter. Mom messaged me separately. "Can I call?" She called around 8 that evening. Her voice had that careful tone people use when they already know you may not like what comes next. She said, "We're thinking of changing Christmas a little." I was making tea. I said, okay. She explained that the house had started feeling crowded. The kids got overstimulated. There were too many adults talking, too many schedules, and too many expectations. She said Michael had mentioned that Christmas felt less magical when everyone was moving in and out. I asked, "What does changing it mean?" She said, "We're thinking maybe just the parents and children this year." I did not understand at first. I said, "Parents and children?" "Yes, just the immediate little families." I laughed lightly. "You and Dad aren't parents?" She said, "You know what I mean." I did. I just wanted her to say it. I asked, "So who is coming?" She listed them: Michael, Sarah, Owen, Lily, Emily, David, Sophie, Mom, Dad. I said, "So everyone." There was a pause. Becca. "Everyone except me." "That's not how we're looking at it." "How are you looking at it?" "As making Christmas more about the children." I said, "I'm their aunt." "I know." "I'm part of their family." "I know that." Then what exactly does me not being there accomplish? Mom sounded uncomfortable. She said, "You don't have little ones. You can come by Boxing Day or that weekend and we can do something quieter." That sentence hurt more than I expected. Not because Boxing Day is terrible, because Christmas itself had been reclassified. The important day belonged to the real families. I could visit after. I asked if Michael and Emily had agreed to this. Mom said, "We all talked." All. Everyone except me had apparently discussed whether I belonged at Christmas. I asked, "Who suggested it?" Mom did not answer directly. She said, "Does it matter?" "Yes." Michael was worried about the kids getting overwhelmed, and Emily agreed it might be simpler. I nodded even though she could not see me. Simpler. My absence was simplicity. I said, "Okay." Mom sounded surprised. "That's it?" "What do you want me to say?" "I just don't want you to think anyone is excluding you." I looked at my phone. I almost laughed. I said, "What word would you use?" This is exactly why I was worried about telling you. I said nothing. She continued, You always take things personally when they aren't meant that way. That was not true. I was famous in my family for absorbing things quietly. But sometimes when you finally name one thing, people use your past silence as evidence that this one should not bother you either. Mom said, We love you. I know. This is just one day. I know. You can come after Christmas. Okay. She relaxed. I could hear it. She thought the problem was solved. Then, before we hung up, she said, You already bought the kids presents, right? And that was the moment something shifted. I asked, Why? Well, I just didn't know whether this changed that. I said, Do you think it should? No, of course not. They're children. None of this has anything to do with them. She was right. It did not. But the fact she needed to secure the gifts before ending the call told me something. They had thought through my attendance. They had not thought through my labor. I said, Yes, I have their gifts. Good. Maybe you can drop them off Christmas Eve? I stared at the wall and I said, Maybe. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen for a long time. My tea went cold. I called nobody. I did not want to hear explanations yet. The next morning, Michael texted, Mom told you? I waited, then replied, Yes. He wrote, I hope you're not mad. It's really just about keeping things calm for the kids. I asked, How does me not being there make it calmer? He answered, Fewer adults, less chaos. I stared at that, then wrote, Why not ask Mom and Dad to leave? He sent a laughing emoji. I did not laugh. He wrote, You know what I mean. There was that sentence again. You know what I mean. Yes, I knew. Parents counted, grandparents counted, spouses of parents counted. The single childless aunt was the removable adult. Michael called me when I stopped responding. He said, You're making this sound worse than it is. I asked, How should I make it sound? It's not about you personally. Then why am I the only person not invited? Because you don't have kids. That sounds personal. You know what I mean. I nearly laughed again. Apparently that was the family slogan now. I said, Who suggested it? He hesitated, then admitted he had raised the idea after the previous Christmas felt stressful. Apparently Lily had a meltdown before dinner. Owen had complained that adults were talking too loudly during a movie. Sophie missed her nap. Michael said he wanted Christmas to feel more intentional. I said, So your solution was to remove me. That's not how I framed it. How did you frame it? Immediate households with kids. I said, Mom and Dad don't have kids living at home. He sighed. Becca, come on. No, explain the rule. He got irritated. This is exactly why Mom was nervous. I said, You mean because the rule doesn't make sense if someone describes it out loud? He said, You can do whatever you want on Christmas. You don't have to schedule around anyone. That sentence stopped me. You can do whatever you want on Christmas. He meant it as an advantage, a consolation prize. But for the first time, I heard it differently. I could do whatever I wanted. I said, You're right. He paused. What? I can't. Then I ended the call. Emily called later. Her approach was softer. She said, I don't want you thinking I don't want you there. I said, But you agreed. She said, I thought it was more like a kid-centered Christmas. I'm not anti-child. I know. I'm their aunt. I know. Then what exactly changes because I'm gone? She had no answer. Finally, she said, You don't understand what Christmas is like when you have kids. That sentence stayed with me. Maybe I did not. But I understood what it felt like to be told that because I did not have children, I had no claim to the holiday. I asked, Would you still like me to bring Sophie's presents? Emily became quiet, then said, Of course, but you don't have to. That answer was better than Mom's. Still, something in me was done. Not with the children, with the event. I kept their presents. I canceled everything else. The trifle first, then the grocery delivery. I had ordered wine and several specialty items Mom wanted. Canceled. I had planned to bring a cheese board on Christmas Eve. Canceled. I had purchased extra decorations for Mom because she said her old lights were unreliable. I returned them. I had promised to come over on the 23rd to help wrap gifts. I sent Mom. I won't be coming over to prep for Christmas since I'm not attending. I've canceled the grocery delivery and dessert. You'll need to reorder those. She called within 30 seconds. What do you mean you canceled them? I canceled them. Why? Because I'm not coming. That doesn't mean you had to cancel everything. I actually smiled. Not because I was happy, because there it was. The sentence I had been waiting for without realizing it. That doesn't mean you had to cancel everything. I asked, what did you think I was going to do? Well, the grocery order was already arranged. By me. Yes, but I was going to reimburse you. Then you can arrange it. She sounded hurt. Becca, this feels petty. I'm not withholding anything you own. You know how much I hate online ordering. Michael can do it. He's busy. Emily can do it. She's busy too. I said nothing. Mom paused, then said, You know what I mean. I almost laughed. There it was again. Busy meant parents. Flexible meant me. I said, I'm busy too. With what? It came out before she could stop herself. I felt that sentence like a slap. With my life, Mom. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. No, I meant you don't have the same Christmas responsibilities. Apparently, I don't have Christmas at all. That's unfair. I said, I'm not arguing anymore. The order is canceled. You have 4 days. Then I hung up. I cried after that call. That surprised me. I had been angry before, but after hearing, with what? I cried. Because suddenly I could see years of small adjustments as one pattern. My life had become invisible because nobody depended on me in the way children depend on parents. My time was empty. My schedule was flexible. My apartment was quieter. My weekends were available. My money had fewer obvious demands. Therefore, apparently, I had less urgency, less claim, less family. I hated how much the Christmas exclusion hurt me. Part of me wanted to call and fight. I wanted to make them admit the rule was cruel. I wanted Dad to intervene. Dad had barely said anything. He called the next evening. He sounded uncomfortable. Your mother says you canceled the food. Yes. You couldn't have just left that part alone? I closed my eyes. Dad? What? You're calling me about groceries. No, I'm calling because everybody's upset. I'm not invited to Christmas. I know. And your concern is the grocery delivery. That's not fair. Then what are you concerned about? He was quiet. Finally, he said, I think this whole thing got out of hand. Did you agree I shouldn't come? He sighed. I didn't think it was that serious. That's not an answer. We were trying to make the day easier. For who? The kids. How does my absence help them? He said, It's fewer people. I asked, Why me? Another silence. That was the answer. Because I was the easiest person to remove. I said, Okay. Dad sounded frustrated. Stop saying okay like that. How should I say it? I don't know. I do. Okay means I understand. Understand what? That everyone voted on who belonged at Christmas, and I lost. Nobody voted. Did anyone say I should still come? Silence. I nodded. Again, he couldn't see me. Okay. That was the last family call I took before Christmas. I made the restaurant reservation that night. The hotel was about 30 minutes from my apartment. The dining room looked beautiful online. Warm lights, white tablecloths, Christmas trees near tall windows, a fixed menu, soup, roast beef or salmon, dessert. I almost didn't book it. The website asked, party size? I selected one. Then it asked, Special occasion. I left it blank. There was something about writing. Christmas alone because my family excluded me. That felt too tragic, even for a reservation note. I paid the deposit. Then I sat back. I had a plan. It wasn't a happy plan yet, but it was mine. Christmas Eve was strange. Normally, I would have been at Mom and Dad's house by noon. I would be chopping something, wrapping something, looking for batteries, listening to Michael complain that the kids were overstimulated. Instead, I woke up in my own apartment. I made coffee. I wrapped Owen, Lily, and Sophie's gifts. Then I drove them to my parents' house around 11 in the morning. I had texted Mom first, and she said everyone was out. That was probably deliberate. Maybe she thought avoiding contact would make things easier. I left the gifts inside the front hallway. Mom came down. She looked tired. She hugged me. For 1 second, I almost stayed. She said, "You know, if you want to come tomorrow, we could probably make it work." Probably. Make it work. Like I was asking for an extra chair after the guest list had been finalized. I said, "No, it's okay." She looked hurt. "I'm trying here." "I know." "You're still angry." "I'm hurt." "There's a difference?" "Yes." She sighed. "I wish you wouldn't turn this into something bigger." I said, "I didn't." She looked confused. I gestured around us. "You all decided Christmas would happen without me. I'm just letting it." She crossed her arms. "You know we love you." "I do." "Then why are you acting like we abandoned you?" "Because you told me not to come." She looked away and then said, "This is not productive." I smiled sadly. "No, probably not." I kissed her cheek, said Merry Christmas, and left. That night, the family group chat became active. Photos of the children in pajamas, cookies, Dad pretending to be Santa. Michael captioned one, "Chaos begins." I muted the chat, not angrily. I just could not watch. Christmas morning was harder than I expected. I woke at 7:15. For a few seconds, I forgot. Then I remembered. No drive to my parents, no stockings, no wrapping paper explosion, no children screaming because someone got the wrong color toy, no Dad pretending he did not know how the coffee machine worked, no Mom asking me to check the turkey before breakfast. The apartment was silent. At first, the silence felt peaceful. Then it felt enormous. I made coffee, opened the curtains. It was cold outside, but bright. I called my friend Marissa. She was with her boyfriend's family. I did not tell her much because I did not want to cry. She said, "Are you okay?" I lied. "Yeah." She said, "You don't sound okay." I told her the short version. She went quiet, then said, "That is unbelievably cruel." I immediately defended them. It's not like they hate me. I didn't say they do. They just wanted something smaller. Becca. What? Stop explaining it for them. That was the first time someone said that to me. Stop explaining it for them. I sat with that after we hung up. At 10:30, the group chat started again. Photos, videos, Sophie opening a doll, Owen with the controller I had found, Lily holding a book I bought. I smiled at those. Then Mom posted a photo. Everyone stood in front of the Christmas tree. Mom, Dad, Michael, Sarah, Owen, Lily, Emily, David, Sophie, 9 people. The caption said, "Whole family together." I stared at it. Whole family. Not almost everyone. Not, wish Becca were here. Whole family. I do not think Mom meant to hurt me. That is what made it worse. She looked at that photo and saw the whole family. I put my phone face down. Then I cried. Not for long. Maybe 10 minutes. But enough that I considered canceling the reservation. I thought, this is pathetic. Going to a restaurant alone on Christmas, everyone will know, everyone will pity me. I can order food and stay home. Then I remembered Michael's sentence. You can do whatever you want on Christmas. He was right, so I got ready. I showered, did my hair, put on a dark green dress I had bought months earlier and never worn. I wore earrings, perfume, heels, not for anyone else, for me. I almost changed back into jeans 3 times. Then I left. The hotel lobby was full of people. Families, couples, older people, children in Christmas sweaters. For a moment, I wanted to disappear. Then I walked to the restaurant desk. The host smiled. Name? Rebecca Lawson. She checked the screen. Party of one? I took a breath. Yes. And something strange happened. Nothing. She did not look sorry for me. She did not hesitate. She did not ask whether someone else was coming. She said, "Right this way." That was it. The humiliation existed mostly in my head. She walked me to a table near a window. One place setting, one chair, a small candle. Outside, the city lights were beginning to come on. I sat down. A waiter brought water. He said, "Merry Christmas." I said, "Merry Christmas." At the next table was an older couple. Behind me was a family speaking French. Across the room was a man alone with a book. Near the bar were 2 women who looked like co-workers or friends. I was not the only person whose Christmas did not look like the version in commercials. I ordered a glass of wine. Then my phone buzzed. Mom, I ignored it. Then Emily, I ignored that too. Then a message appeared in the family group. Mom, Becca, did you cancel the trifle? I looked at it. Then another message. Michael. Wait, there's no dessert? I almost laughed. A waiter placed soup in front of me. I took a photo of it, not for social media, just because it looked beautiful. Then I replied, "Yes. Mom, why?" I stared at that question. Why? As if the cancellation had happened in another universe from the exclusion. I wrote, "Because I'm not attending Christmas." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Mom wrote, "I assumed you had already paid for it." I replied, "I had. I canceled it and got a refund." Michael, "You could have told us." I put my phone down. I ate my soup. A few minutes later, Dad called. I declined it. He called again. I answered. He said, "What's going on?" I almost laughed. "With what?" "The dessert. Mom says the grocery order was canceled too." "Yes. You didn't tell anyone." "I told Mom 4 days ago." "You said you canceled it. I didn't realize that meant everything." "What did you think canceled meant?" "Becca." "What?" "You could have at least made sure things were covered." I looked around the restaurant, warm lights, people talking, a waiter pouring wine. I said, "Dad, you told me I wasn't coming." "That didn't mean you had to pull out of everything." There it was. I leaned back. I thought parents were handling Christmas. He went quiet. I had not planned that sentence. It just came. He said, "That's childish." I almost became angry. Then I realized I did not need to. I said, "I hope you all have a nice dinner." "Where are you?" "Having mine." "With who?" "Me." Another silence. Dad said, "You're eating alone?" "Yes." "That's ridiculous. Come here." I looked at my plate, then at the room, then out the window. "No, Becca, I already have plans." "You're sitting alone." "I'm still busy." The words came out before I thought about them. I remembered Mom asking, "With what?" I smiled. "I have to go, Dad. Merry Christmas." Then I hung up. I turned my phone off. Not silent, off, and I ate Christmas dinner by myself. Something changed between the soup and dessert. I stopped feeling abandoned, not completely. I was still hurt. But the evening stopped feeling like evidence that nobody wanted me. It became simply my evening. The food was good. The wine was better. I watched people. I listened to music. I ordered dessert even though I was full because nobody was there to tell me I did not need it. When the waiter brought the bill, he said, "I hope you had a lovely Christmas." I realized I had. Not the Christmas I wanted, but a lovely one anyway. On the way out, the older woman from the table beside mine stopped me. She said, "That dress is beautiful." I thanked her. She smiled. "You looked like you were having the best time in here." I laughed. I eventually was. She said, "That's usually how it works." I still think about that. The next morning, I turned my phone back on. 32 notifications, some family, some friends. Mom had sent, "I hope you're happy. Yesterday was stressful enough without all this." Michael had written, "Dad said you ate at a hotel alone. That's dramatic." Emily had sent privately, "Are you okay?" I answered Emily, "Yes." She replied, "I'm sorry." That was all. No explanation, no but. Just sorry. I appreciated it. Mom called later. I answered. She said, "We need to talk." I said, "Okay." She said Christmas dinner had been chaotic. The grocery order had to be replaced at the last minute. The dessert was gone. The children were overstimulated anyway. Michael and Sarah argued. Sophie refused to eat. Dad overcooked something because I normally helped him monitor the oven. I listened. Then Mom said, "I just wish you hadn't chosen that moment to make a point." I said, "I didn't make a point. You canceled everything." "I canceled things I was doing for an event I wasn't attending. That is making a point." "No, it is not doing work for something I'm not part of." She became quiet, then said, "You sound cold." I said, "I'm tired." "Of what?" "Being useful." She did not understand, so I explained. I told her about changing flights, sleeping on sofas, moving plans, paying for things, helping, showing up. Not because any one of those things had been wrong, but because somehow all of them had taught the family that I was available by default. I said, "You all decided I didn't need to be at Christmas because I don't have children, but nobody thought my work should disappear with me." Mom said, "We didn't see it that way." I know. That was the problem. She said, "You're making us sound terrible." I'm telling you how it felt. That's not the same thing. No, but it matters. She cried. I did not rush to comfort her. That was new. Eventually, she said, "I'm sorry you felt excluded." I said, "No." She sounded confused. "What?" "I don't want that apology." "What do you mean?" I wasn't feeling excluded. I was excluded. Silence. I said, "You can be sorry for doing it or not, but don't apologize for my reaction, like that was the problem." She hung up soon after. For the next several weeks, things were awkward. I did not announce a boundary plan. I did not send a family manifesto. I simply stopped automatically reorganizing my life around everybody else. That change looked small from the outside. It felt enormous to me. Michael asked if I could babysit one Saturday because he and Sarah had tickets to an event. Normally, I would have checked my calendar and moved things around. I said, "No, I have plans." He asked, "What plans?" I almost explained. Then I stopped. "I'm busy." He said, "You can't tell me?" "I can, I don't need to." He sounded surprised. My plan was lunch with a friend and then a bookstore. It did not involve a child. It did not have a deadline. Nobody depended on me. It was still a plan. Emily asked if I could drive Mom to an appointment because she had work. I checked my calendar. I had work too. In the past, I would have rearranged it because my job was more flexible. I said I couldn't. Emily found another solution. Nothing collapsed. That was another thing I learned. Some family emergencies only exist because one person is always expected to prevent inconvenience. Once I stopped being automatically available, people became more resourceful. In February, Mom said, "You've changed since Christmas." We were having coffee. I said, "I think I have." She looked surprised. Apparently, she expected me to deny it. She said, "You used to be more involved." "I still am." "Not the same way." "No." "Why?" I looked at her. Because I realized I had been waiting to be included in a life where my place kept shrinking. She looked hurt. "That's dramatic." "Maybe. You know your brother and sister have children. Of course things change." "Yes." "You act like we punished you for being single." I don't think you meant to. Then why keep bringing it up? Because intent isn't the only thing that matters. She crossed her arms. Christmas was one mistake. I said, Christmas was the first time the pattern became impossible not to see. Mom said nothing. I changed too in ways that had nothing to do with them. I started saying yes to friends more. That sounds simple. It wasn't. For years, I kept weekends open because family plans might happen. A niece's party, a sibling visit, mom needing help. Something always appeared. Now, if someone invited me somewhere, I stopped mentally checking whether my family might need that date later. I booked things, a theater ticket, a weekend trip, dinner, a hiking group. I joined a pottery class for 3 months and made several objects that looked like they had survived small explosions. I loved it. I traveled to Montreal with Marissa in May. I went to a concert alone in July when my friend canceled. The old Becca would have stayed home. Christmas had taught me something about being alone. It is only shameful if you believe other people's presence is proof of your value. By summer, my family had started adjusting. Not perfectly, but they noticed. Michael stopped assuming I would babysit, he asked. Emily became more careful about scheduling. Mom still struggled. She liked the old version of me, the useful one, the available one, the one who said, works for me, every time. Then came Thanksgiving. Mom sent a group message asking who was coming. I replied, I can make it from 3 to 7. She immediately called. What does that mean? It means I can come from 3 to 7. You're leaving at 7? Yes. Why? I have plans. On Thanksgiving? After dinner. With who? Friends. She sounded almost offended, but Thanksgiving is family. There was that word. I said, I'm spending part of it with family. You never used to divide holidays. I know. She became quiet and then asked, Is this because of Christmas? I thought about it. Yes, she sighed. At least you're honest. I went to Thanksgiving. It was fine. Actually, it was more than fine. Nobody mentioned parents only. Michael made a joke about me bringing my own dessert this time. I looked at him. He immediately said, Too soon? I said, Yes. He apologized. At 7, I left. Nobody died. Nobody collapsed. The turkey remained edible after my departure. I went to a friend's house where 6 people were playing cards and arguing about whether pumpkin pie was overrated. I stayed until midnight. That night, I realized something. My family had always acted as if dividing holidays meant reducing family. It didn't. I had simply added more life. In early December, Mom called. Her voice was careful again. I knew. She said, We're doing Christmas normally this year. I almost smiled. Normally? Yes, everybody. She emphasized the word. Everybody. I said, Okay. We love you here. Thanks. What time can you come Christmas Eve? I said, I can't. Silence. What do you mean? I already have plans. What plans? I had plans with Marissa and several other friends. We had talked about Christmas months earlier. Marissa's relationship had ended. One coworker, Jason, was from Australia and couldn't travel home. My neighbor, Denise, had lost her husband 2 years earlier and hated Christmas afternoons alone. Another friend, Carmen, was divorced, and her children would be with their father until the 26th. We had joked in August, maybe Becca should host the rejects. I hated the word rejects, so I said, no, we'll call it the open table. The idea stayed. By October, it was real. I booked a private room at the same hotel where I had eaten alone. Not because I needed the symbolism, but because I liked the place. The reservation was for 8. The year before, 1. This year, 8. I told Mom, I'm hosting Christmas dinner. She laughed because she thought I was joking. Then she realized I wasn't. You're hosting? Yes. Who? Friends. On Christmas? Yes. But we're all together this year. I know. You're invited. I know. So cancel the other thing. The ease with which she said it was almost impressive. Cancel. Because family had reclaimed the date, I said, no. Mom went silent. I said, I already committed. To friends? Yes. Over family? No, I made plans. Becca, you created those plans because you thought you weren't welcome here. Yes. And now you are. I took a breath. That doesn't erase the life I built after? She sounded hurt. We're your family. There it was. I knew it would come, and I said, I know. Then why are you choosing strangers? They're not strangers. You know what I mean. I smiled. The family phrase again. This time I did not need to challenge it. I said, you taught me Christmas could happen without me. I learned mine could happen without waiting for permission. She went quiet. Then she said, that's a cruel thing to say. I'm not trying to hurt you. Well, you are. I'm sorry you're hurt. She laughed bitterly. Oh, now you use that kind of apology. She had me there. I smiled despite myself. Then I said, you're right. Let me say it better. I'm sorry this hurts you. I'm still keeping my plans. That was one of the most important boundaries I ever set. Compassion without surrender. I did not need Mom to stop feeling hurt. I did not need to prove my choice was painless. I could care and still keep it. Michael called that evening. He said, seriously? You're skipping Christmas now? I said, yes. He said, so we exclude you once and now you're doing it back forever? No. What's the difference? I'm not excluding you. I have plans. That's semantics. No. Last year you created a guest list and removed me. This year I accepted an invitation to my own life. He went quiet. Then he said, you've gotten very philosophical. I laughed. Therapy would probably be cheaper. He laughed too. That broke something open between us. Then he said, I'm sorry about last year. I stopped smiling. He continued, I thought the idea was reasonable because you didn't have kids. I didn't think about what that actually meant. I said nothing. He said, when Mom posted the family picture and you weren't there, Sarah said it looked awful. I asked, why didn't anyone say anything? He answered honestly, because admitting it looked awful would mean admitting we did something awful. That sentence mattered. I said, thank you. He asked if I would come by on Boxing Day. I said yes. Emily called 2 days later. She apologized too. Her apology was different. She said, I think I used being a parent like it made my time more important. I said, you weren't the only one. I know. She said, sometimes I was jealous of you. That surprised me. For what? Your freedom. I laughed softly. You know, everybody used my freedom as evidence that I didn't need anything. I know. She said, I think sometimes when you adjusted for me, I felt guilty. So I told myself it was easier for you. That way I didn't have to feel guilty. I understood that, not because it excused it, because it was human. She said, I'm sorry. I said, thank you. We still did not spend Christmas together. That was important. Reconciliation did not require erasing the consequence. Christmas Day arrived. My apartment looked different that year. I had lights everywhere. A long table. Not fancy, just warm. I had place cards even though everyone made fun of me. Marissa came early with wine. Jason brought a dessert that collapsed in the car and tasted amazing anyway. Denise brought stuffing. Carmen brought nothing because I told her not to worry. She brought flowers anyway. 2 other friends came later. One coworker brought his brother. 8 people, some single, some divorced. 1 widowed, 1 in a relationship, 1 far from home. No one had to qualify. No one had to prove they were a parent. No one was there because they were supposed to be. They were there because they wanted to be. At one point, I stood in the kitchen looking at the table. 8 people laughing, someone arguing about music, someone pouring more wine, Denise telling a story about her husband, Marissa laughing so hard she was crying. And I remembered the hotel reservation screen from the year before, party size, 1. I had thought clicking 1 meant admitting I had no one. I was wrong. It meant admitting I existed even if no one else was sitting beside me. That was the beginning. The table had grown from there. My mother texted around 6, Merry Christmas. We miss you. I replied, Merry Christmas. Love you. That was enough. No scorekeeping. No photo designed to prove I was happier. No revenge. Later, Michael sent a picture of the family. This time, the caption said, Missing Becca. I looked at it for a long time, then smiled. Not because everything was fixed, because they finally noticed the empty space. That is different from assuming the picture is whole without you. The following year, I split Christmas, morning with my parents, dinner at my place with friends. Nobody loved the arrangement at first, then everyone adjusted. That is another thing I learned. Families often call a boundary impossible right before they begin living with it. My parents changed too, slowly. Mom stopped saying, "You don't have a family schedule." She started asking, "Are you free?" Those are completely different questions. Michael stopped assuming my time could fill gaps. Emily did the same. I still babysit. I still help. I still buy too many gifts for the children. I still sometimes arrive early at Mom's house and end up in the kitchen. But now I notice when I am choosing it. And they notice too. That is the difference. The children grew older. Owen eventually became old enough to understand something had happened that Christmas. He once asked me, "Why weren't you in the picture from when I was 9? We were looking through photos on Mom's tablet, the famous whole family picture. I hesitated, then said, "Plans were complicated that year?" He looked at the picture, then at me. "You should have been there." I smiled. "Yeah," he said. "That's weird." Children can sometimes solve complicated family dynamics in 3 words. That's weird? Yes, it was. But I no longer needed to rewrite that Christmas into something kinder than it had been. It hurt. My family excluded me. They did it because they had slowly come to believe parenthood created a higher category of belonging. They were wrong. They eventually understood that. Not perfectly, but enough. And I also learned something I might not have learned if they had invited me after all. I had spent years treating inclusion as something other people granted me. Family plans happened. I adjusted. Holidays were scheduled. I attended. People needed help. I helped. If I was invited, I belonged. If I was needed, I mattered. That Christmas broke that equation. For the first time, nobody needed me, and I had to decide whether I mattered anyway. That is what the table for one gave me. Not independence in the dramatic sense. I had already paid my own bills, lived alone, traveled alone, built a career. I knew how to function independently. What I did not know was how to belong to myself. There is a difference. I knew how to be alone when necessary. I did not know how to choose myself without treating it as a backup plan. My hotel dinner was originally Plan B. Family did not want me, so I found somewhere else to go. But somewhere between that first glass of wine and turning my phone off, it stopped being second choice. It became my choice. That changed everything afterward. I stopped measuring my plans by how easily they could be canceled. I stopped assuming married people's calendars were more legitimate. I stopped treating parenthood as the only form of adulthood that created responsibilities. I had responsibilities too. Some were to work, some to friends, some to myself. Some were simply commitments I wanted to honor. Those count. I also stopped being ashamed of doing things alone. Dinner, concerts, and travel. Christmas? There is a strange social pressure around being alone, especially as a woman in your 30s. People assume you are waiting for a partner, waiting for children, waiting for the real life to start. I wasn't. My life had already started. I had just been measuring some parts of it against everyone else's. Michael's family, Emily's family, Mom and Dad's idea of family. Then one Christmas, they accidentally gave me a gift I never would have asked for. They removed my seat and forced me to realize I could choose another table. When people hear this story, they usually ask whether I forgave them. Yes, mostly. But forgiveness is not pretending something did not matter. I forgave Michael. I forgave Emily. I forgave my parents. I also remember. Those things can exist together. The family relationship improved because I stopped needing them to agree that I deserved a place. I already knew. That made conversations simpler. If Mom said, "We need you here Saturday," I would ask, "Do you need me, or are you asking if I'm available?" At first, she hated that question. Eventually, she understood it. If Michael said, "You're free anyway," I corrected him. "You don't know that." If Emily said, "It's easier for you," sometimes I agreed. Sometimes it was easier. But easier did not mean automatic. That distinction saved a lot of resentment. I also started celebrating my own milestones. That sounds almost embarrassing to admit. Before, I waited for family recognition, promotion, new apartment, professional certification, travel. If everyone was busy, I told myself it didn't matter. Now I make things matter. When I turned 40, I rented a small event room and invited people I loved. Friends, family, co-workers, neighbors. Michael came, Emily came, my parents came. Marissa gave a speech that was mostly inappropriate. There were children running around, adults talking too loudly, schedules colliding. Everything Michael once said made Christmas too stressful. And somehow nobody suggested removing the childless people. At one point, Mom stood beside me watching everyone. She said, "You built a big life." I looked at her. I knew she meant it kindly. I said, "I always had one." Her face changed, just slightly. Then she nodded. "I know." That might have been the closest we ever came to discussing everything in one sentence. I always had one. I had a life before children arrived in the family. I had a life when nobody needed me. I had a life when I was alone on Christmas. I had a life when my family did not see it clearly, and I did not need to become a wife or mother to make that true. Sometimes families build hierarchies without realizing they are doing it. Parents, grandparents, married children, children with children, single siblings, childless relatives. People get placed around the edges based on assumptions about who needs more, who is busier, who is more settled, who has the real obligations. And the person at the edge keeps accommodating because they do not want to be difficult. Until one day the family takes one step too far. Mine was Christmas. Parents only. Such a simple phrase. It sounded practical to them, almost neutral. But categories are rarely neutral when exactly one person fails to qualify. I was the exception. And once I saw it, I could not unsee all the smaller versions that came before. The guest rooms, the schedule changes, the comments about my flexibility, the assumption that my time was available, the way my milestones were celebrated privately while the children's were family events. None of those things required revenge. They required adjustment. So I adjusted, not by disappearing, by becoming less available for erasure. I still love Christmas. That surprises people. They expect me to hate it now. I don't. If anything, I love it more, because now I know what part actually matters. Not who qualifies, not what your household looks like, not whether there are children, not whether someone is married, not whether the photo looks like a greeting card. The table matters because people choose to sit together. That's all. No one should need a title to deserve a chair, parent, spouse, grandparent. None of those things make a person more family than someone else. They change relationships. They change responsibilities. They do not determine worth. The first year I ate at the hotel, I thought the saddest thing in the world was hearing, "Party of one?" Now I think about how confidently I eventually answered, "Yes." No explanation, no apology, and no imaginary guest. Yes, one. That was enough. And from that one chair, I built something larger. Friends I had neglected because family always came first. Traditions I chose. Holidays that belonged to me, too. A relationship with my siblings that depended less on obligation. A relationship with my parents that became more honest. A life that no longer waited to see whether someone else had saved me a seat. That Christmas, my family told me I wasn't welcome because I wasn't a parent. They called it parents only. I called it what it was eventually, exclusion. But I don't think of that Christmas as the year I lost my family. I think of it as the year I stopped confusing access to their table with proof that I belonged somewhere. I already belonged. I just had to act like it. I thought booking a table for one meant admitting I had nobody. I was wrong. It was the first time I chose myself without waiting for someone else to choose me first. The table only had one chair. The life I built from it didn't.